Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Inept General bringing you the first of what will likely be a 6 or 7-part look at some of the characters in the XCOM lore. And today we are looking at Elena Outrider Dragunova. Elena appears as a character in XCOM 2 War of the Chosen as one of the ambassadors for the new factions in that DLC for that game. She is a representative of the Reapers. So let's delve into a bit of Elena's backstory and where she comes from to try and give us a better understanding of the XCOM universe as a whole from a lore perspective. The alien invasion of the XCOM world happens in February of 2015. Their ships arrive in our atmosphere and start to rain down fire on our cities. They unleash untold chemical weapons upon our poor citizens, and in this initial chaos of the invasion is where Elena loses both of her parents. Alone, living in the streets, presumably on the outskirts of an abandoned or devastated city, Elena, as a child, we're not sure how old she is at this stage, but wanders the streets with nothing but vengeance in her heart. She knows the aliens have done this to her, and she will have her revenge. From a young age, she starts to think of ways, hiding out in the ruins of the city, of killing aliens. When she can trap one by itself, she'll try and shank it to death. She manages to dig out some weaponry, and soon is a skilled soldier within her own right. Soon enough, the aliens weren't the only thing to contend with, and she found herself having to fight off the infected humans from the alien chemical weapons who had become known as the Lost. This was a hard life she lived, one that truly was sink or swim. She had two choices: to die or to survive, and each day she managed to survive. One followed the other, and on she went, hardening herself, becoming a true weapon against the aliens, even considering her young age. Now, we're not entirely sure how much time passes between the time she loses her parents and starts to live by herself in the ruins of the cities, but by the time she is 13, she is doing her usual patrols in her territory when she hears a noise in the distance. She starts to close to see a chrysalid charging down an innocent civilian, and little did she know at that time she is about to meet someone who would change her life forever. This soldier, a man significantly older than her, was being pursued, his weapon knocked out his hand, and that is when she began firing down on the chrysalid, joined by him, and together they managed to bring down this armored, spiked monstrosity of the alien arsenal. Now, this man was Volk. Now, Volk himself had led an extraordinary life at this point, having served alongside some XCOM veterans in some battles over the course of his life. He'd now started a resistance group with a soldier by the name of Eli, and together they'd gone on to form the resistance group that would later become known as the Reapers. They were known for their stealthy approach to warfare, more cunning and trickery and sharp shooting than necessarily head-on confrontations with just sheer force of arms. By this stage in her life, Elena was all but feral, and it took Volk's kindness and patience to get her to agree to come with him, but he made her laugh, and she agreed to come along, and she would later go on to join his military group. In this new group, Elena finally found a home. After so many years alone on the road, surviving by herself, it took her a while to adjust, but soon enough, she would accept these people as her friends, as her family. The Reapers, however, were in a desolate post-apocalyptic world. XCOM had fallen, nothing else could supply them with food or supplies, and so they had started a rather unusual habit of killing and eating the aliens themselves to maintain their rations, and were indeed known to procure the odd delicious recipe for the aliens as we know them today. Sectoids, for example, were known for their tough skin. Due to their kind of naked exterior, it's thought that their skin's a bit thicker and tougher than a normal human being or a normal animal we'd perhaps find on Earth. However, they did soon discover that once you cut them open, this kind of slime pours out of them that you can make an excellent gravy out of, for example. Mutons were known to smell extremely bad, and to such an extent that they could actually knock someone unconscious, but with the proper seasoning, they were not bad and could be considered rendered even tender and tasty with the right preparation. So those are some cooking tips for you when it comes to the aliens of XCOM. But as I was saying, she found a place that she could call her home, and in time, she even found romance. Who her first boyfriend was growing up and what have you, we don't have the details of that in her early life in the Reapers, but we know that some 15 years after the initial invasion, so by the year 2030, she's fully a member of the Reapers. They have formed as an official group, and she is seeing a fellow Reaper by the name of Tomko. Now, her and Tomko are hot and steamy, and they go at it much like two young people would in any time in any war. But one day, whilst doing a patrol through a ruined suburban area, their team of Reapers were set upon. It was an ambush. They started to come under heavy fire. A rift opened, and seemingly a battalion of Andromedans came through the rift. They were outgunned, outnumbered. This was truly a dire situation, the worst that Elena had ever seen with her time in the Reapers. They were really in trouble, coming under heavy fire. They decided to retreat onto a rooftop where they were just getting pinned down, and again, they were getting surrounded with berserkers crawling up the sides of the building. Elena and Tomko and Volk found themselves on the roof. Tomko took a bullet, causing him to collapse, as Volk and Elena tried to descend the roof from the fire escape and just try and get off there and escape this ambush whatever way they could. Tomko was left behind, and the last Elena ever saw of her boyfriend was him being pinned to the ground by berserkers who had managed to climb up the walls and reach the roof. She was devastated, and as Volk dragged her away, she screamed, "We don't leave our own behind," to which Volk, always the pragmatist, said, "We do when it's the only option," as they made their escape from that rooftop. Elena continued to grieve for some time, but as with all things in war, you can't let yourself linger on those kinds of emotions. And for those who hadn't made it, you mourned. For those who did, all you could do was celebrate life. And indeed, this was a creed she'd grown up with. She had grown up in war, had known nothing but death, and so she got over it relatively quickly to find comfort in the arms of another, which to our sensibilities might seem soon, but who are we to judge in this time of desperation, chaos, and war? Soon after the incident where they lost Tomko, but not years or a particularly long distance after, Elena and Volk were on patrol when they came across an old and torn XCOM banner that had a certain code on it that would apply to a kind of radio frequency. Later on, when they returned to their camp, Volk decided to try this frequency, but they had to be careful, and indeed, it did seem to be XCOM that they came into contact with, and the two sides soon arranged a neutral meeting place where they could come into contact with each other. And when they arrived there, they were soon greeted with a helicopter landing, and none other than Central Bradford himself came out, an old acquaintance of Volk's who'd not been in contact since the early days of the resistance against the aliens. Now, Elena is thought to have met Central for the first time, Bradford, as others may know him, in this meeting, and after polite introductions, Central suggested that both Volk and Elena come to meet the remnants of XCOM so they can discuss a mission they had in mind, and so Volk and Elena got in the helicopter and they flew to see what had become of XCOM, and this is where they first meet Chief Engineer Shen and Chief Research Officer Taigen as well. And it's here that XCOM told the Reapers about the PCS chips, which were implanted chips that the aliens had put into people and into some of their soldiers to ensure obedience and to issue orders and the like. Now, XCOM were just a fraction of what they once were, really kind of disheveled. They obviously weren't doing that well themselves, but they were a big enough group to lead off the idea that a joint operation was needed to seize some of these PCS chips, to study them, to maybe understand a way to break up the alien communication network. In this meeting, Bradford and XCOM did explain to Elena and Volk that they've already secured the cooperation of a group calling themselves the Skirmishers, who are some Advent troops who had defected from the alien side and were now fighting against them as well. So they'd secured one ally, and they were hoping that that Elena and Volk would agree to join them and bring the Reapers in on the operation as well. Now, Volk seemed pretty positive about this plan to begin with. Elena, not so much, but Volk managed to talk her around a little bit, and she understood the benefit of a joint operation. So when they both got back to Reaper HQ, they spoke to their leader, Eli. Now, Eli was not happy with this plan at all. He thought it would overexpose them, it wasn't worth the risk, and Eli, who was the leader of the Reapers at this time, is completely against the idea. And Elena kind of flip-flops at this stage because she has had an initial disagreement with Volk about it, but having seen his side, really fought furiously for the plan to go ahead. And eventually they managed to get Eli to agree to a commitment to the operation, as it's perhaps one of the first positive steps any of the factions had in a very long time against this war with the aliens. And so the operation started. They were going to basically hijack a train running through a valley, ambush it, get the PCS chips, study them, and try to discover a way to break up the alien communication network, stop orders getting through to their troops. And so everyone is in positions. The skirmishers, the Reapers, XCOM. They're all ready to go. On the signal, fire from all the different factions starts to rain down on the train. But this is a trap. The train doors open, filled with alien troopers firing out their own guns at the ambush. The resistance did have the high ground, but it was a fearsome firefight. And soon after, the Advent forces of the aliens had brought in their air support, and amongst their air support was a truly frightening sniper who started to pick off Reaper after Reaper after Reaper, one after the other, falling, single hit shots, killing them, wiping them out. They were in a lot of trouble, they needed air support of their own, and lo and behold, Central delivered. Came with a number of helicopters, exchanging fire with these Advent air support troops, engaging in a battle in the air, allowing the troops on the ground to further concentrate their fire on the train rather than the threat in the air at this stage. Given enough time, the XCOM troops and the Reaper snipers managed to bring down most of the air support that the Advent troopers had. They were winning the day, having brought down their air support and managing to destroy most of the troops on the train. It was at this point that the Reapers leader Eli felt that they'd contributed enough. The day was pretty much won. It's time for them to make a hasty retreat just before it's all over to try and make a clean escape. So they give the signal and the Reapers start to dispatch. In the group with the leader Eli was Elena and Volk, as they all kind of scattered to regroup at their own base, not to draw too much attention to them moving in numbers. And it's during this point that this huge monstrosity with a sniper rifle appears in front of them and unleashes a shot at the party. Volk and Elena managed to dodge out the way, but Eli was right at the back and was too slow to react and took a bullet, killing Eli almost instantly. Thinking quickly, Volk and Elena threw grenades at the monster to try and chase it out of its position. The creature seemingly had no choice but to dive from the cliff ledge to escape the blast of the grenades, giving Volk and Elena a clear means of escape. The train itself, having been lost, triggered a self-destruct and blew up, and it seemed that the operation had been successful, although perhaps the PCS chips to stop the communications that the whole operation was for had been lost. Now, as far as Elena was concerned, the Reapers had left at this stage, so it wasn't for some time until they discovered that this operation was a success. But it turns out that actually the PCS chips were on the train. It wasn't just an ambush, it was just heavily protected, and the resistance got their first look at the PCS chips that the aliens had been using to control many of their troops, and had an opportunity to study and perhaps gain their first advantage over the enemy in a very, very long time. Now, having witnessed this battle, Elena's thoughts started to drift towards the creature they'd seen. It had probably been the same creature that had been sniping them in the battle earlier. And in the way it moved, and in the way it talked to them and taunted the Reapers in their brief exchange with it when it killed Eli, it reminded her of her old lover Tomko. And indeed, she was convinced that they were one and the same. Now, for us, the audience for the story, we know for a fact that it was, in fact, that day that Tomko got taken, he was turned into the Chosen we know in the game as the Hunter. The sniper rifle Chosen. He was once a Reaper, made, changed, perverted by the aliens to hunt his own ex-comrades in arms, to kill them with abandon. And this was once the man that Elena had loved, who had gone on to become this weapon of the enemy. Now, sometime later, the skirmishers and the Reapers come together for another joint operation where they lead a charge against a place known as Omega Station. However, Elena's involvement in this operation is a little bit nebulous and not terribly involved in it. We're not sure exactly what her contribution was, but we can maybe imagine she was part of that operation as well. But suffice it to say, from that moment forward, from that initial operation, on and off, XCOM and the Reapers, or the Skirmishers and XCOM, or all three of them would work together, but never the Skirmishers and the Reapers alone. There was still a deep distrust there between those two parties. Now, since the death of Eli, the head of the Reapers, it was Volk who took over as their commander, and he would go on to lead them for a number of years more. And in the year 2035, XCOM reached out and asked the Reapers for help, sort of reaching out to Volk and asking him to confirm a rumor for them, check on some intel they've received, that perhaps their legendary commander was still alive. And so Volk sent his best, his most efficient agent to check it out, and that was none other than Elena, who led a one-man mission to confirm the location of the commander. And indeed she does, kicking off the entire events of XCOM 2. And so that is the story of Elena up into the beginning of XCOM 2. Whether she survived your campaign or not, she was truly a tenacious soldier, surviving by herself as a child in the ruins of the old world, learning to kill and maim to survive. She went on to thrive, and truly is one of my favorite characters in the XCOM lore so far, and I hope she's one of yours too, knowing a bit more about her, maybe perhaps giving her extra motivation to hunt down her ex-lover Tomko, the chosen hunter for the aliens, maybe for your next campaign. As I said, guys, this is part 1 of what I hope to be 6 or 7 parts, each taking a character from the XCOM lore and going over their story and where you find them at the beginning of XCOM 2. Do let me know if you enjoyed this series, if you guys are XCOM fans as well. I have so far on the channel been focusing more on Total War Warhammer, but I thought I'd branch out a bit, and this is another game I thoroughly enjoy, and there may be an adjoining campaign to go along with this new series I'm doing, but it won't take away from some of the other stuff I've been doing as well. As I said, guys, I'm the Inept General. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope to catch you all on the next one. Alright guys, bye.